Hello, everybody. Hopefully, you have made your way into this session. I'm giving everybody a few minutes to kind of make their way over here, but we are going to get started. My apologies for the delay. Our speaker today is an East Coaster that has been delivered to the West Coast, to Vegas. So, he can't talk about what's going on over there, but I can indicate that it includes a paid for conference room that is now locked and he's in a hallway. So we are flexible. We do what we do.
That's right.
My name, for any of you that I haven't met, my name is Jordana McGonigal. I'm the CEO of the Recon Network. This roundtable is the first event of the year and of its kind, where we talk to different experts, different industries, different topics across the U.S. about subjects that matter to you as transitioning or career switching veterans and military spouses. So I am super excited today to have Daniel Lovelace. Daniel is a good friend. We go way, way back. But Daniel is one of the most creative minds when I think of someone who knows personal branding and what that means for a career shift, and has actually had a number of career shifts that were not just finding a new job. They were actually pretty significant industry changing events. So Daniel, welcome today. Before we get started, over on the right hand side, guys, you will see that you can have chat. You can ask questions. If you want to throw them in there, we will have Q&A towards the end of this, or I'll try and feed them in as we're talking with Daniel. And there's also somewhere that I can't find right this second an opportunity to raise your hand and join us on the stage for questions. So if you want to do any of that, please feel free, because that's the whole point of the few of us that are here being here today. So Daniel, welcome. Tell us about yourself. How's your day going, Daniel?
The day's going great. It's full of adventure. I am in Las Vegas for a conference for a new business that we started in last January, and so we're here to see what our competitors do. We're new to this specific industry, and so we've got some competitors that have been in this industry now for 80 years. They're, I think, second and third generation businesses, and we're brand new. And so, we're just here scouting out our competition, and I paid for a meeting room for this hour that we'll have together, and all the doors are locked. And so I'm in a great quiet hallway though. I'm focused.
We'll make it work. We'll make it work. So right. As we get started, because one of the things that we hear about at the Recon Network a lot is building a personal brand. So that's something that a lot of people don't think, if you're trying to be an influencer, or you're trying to create a career as a speaker or consultant, and we've lost Daniel. All right, guys, sorry about that. This is just the way that the day is going. Up here he comes again. Hi.
Hello. I'm back.
Okay, so
state that last part one more time. I apologize.
That's quite all right. I won't hold it against you for more than 10 years. Okay, so we're talking personal brands. For people who want to become a consultant or a speaker, that kind of seems logical. You need a brand to kind of sell yourself. But what about the average job seeker, the person who's out there just hoofing it, trying to find their next career path? How does a personal brand fit into that?
I see this as almost like a dartboard with two circles. You've got this outer circle that's a lot more general in who you are, and this inner circle that's a lot more targeted in who you are. And so if we take a step back, even before we get there, we talk about what branding is. We see brands all over the place. And so in its most general way of communicating this, I think that's the easiest way of looking at this. We see where Home Depot and Lowe's are in this brand competition to who's going to be known as what. Home Depot and Lowe's are both hardware stores. Home Depot has branded itself to be more towards contractors, and Lowe's has branded itself to be known more as more to your general consumer. And if we think about what branding is just our most basic way of telling people who we are and what they can expect when they encounter our brand. And so when we think about being a person and personal branding, we have to think about what is it that we want people to know about us when we walk in the room? What is it that we want people to know about us when they encounter us? And specifically in the job hunt, the reason I brought up the two circles on a dartboard that has one circle here and a circle out here, you have you have people, and maybe here on this talk here today, who have very laser focused specific skill sets that are necessary for a specific job. And I would say things like, they have a law background, so it's being a lawyer, or it's an engineering background, so I'm an engineer. But more and more frequently, I find people that say, well, I don't have that general skill set when it comes to, I need to tell people I have this degree or this specific laser specific skill set. So what I want them to know is that I'm good at these general things, and I've got this background. So let's talk about the people coming from a military background. Well, just because you were a truck driver, or just because you were in logistics, or just because you were in this position, doesn't mean you have to have those very specific transferable skills. And so what I would say is that we back out of that inner circle, and we back out to the outer circle and say, what are the things that I'm good at out here that make me good at these things in here? And if I could pick 3 to 5 of those and begin to message those, so by way of a resume, or by way of my headline and my social media platforms, whether that's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or maybe you've jumped on the TikTok train, or whatever that is. I hope you haven't, but I'm kidding. TikTok is king right now. But what I would say is that in all of those platforms, or in any piece of communication, we take those 4 or 5 general things that we're good at. If we're more of a general talent kind of person, that would make us killer in an organization, and one of the best hiring markets that I've seen. And we drill in on those, and we say them as clear and concisely as possible, and as often as possible, because as you know, when employers are looking for people, they're looking at every place that you're going to have your fingerprints on. They're looking at when they Google you, they're looking at your Facebook account, they're looking at your Instagram account, they're looking at any link that's got your name on it. And the more often that we can be consistent in the things that we say, I think we're only helping ourselves clarify our brand, or set an expectation for what people can think about us before we ever have a conversation.
Well, and that's interesting, because when we talk about corporate brands, in the marketing world, you say your brand is everything from your logo to how you answer the phone. Right. And it really is, because it's all how it works together to give you a sense of what that brand is, what they stand for, what their values are, all of those kinds of things. So in transferring that to, a job seeking veteran or military spouse, it's very much the same way. Like you were saying, it does matter what your Facebook looks like, and it does matter what your LinkedIn looks like, and that matches your resume and all of those other things.
That's exactly right. There's a sales training that I've gone through in the past, Sandler sales training, and one of the things that they mentioned that my new business partner and I talk about a lot is dress like your customer. And the reason we talk about that is that on what I would say that the majority of my career has been either working at, leading, or owning a marketing company. Well, I have a certain way that I need to dress in that atmosphere, because it helps set an expectation for the type of person that we're going to be working with. And what's happened since then is like right now I'm at the World of Concrete in Las Vegas. And why is a marketer at World of Concrete? Well, I've had a 9-year client that we've become really close, and he sells, or we sell now, fabricating machinery to the fabricating industry, but also now we've lasered into the concrete world because they buy rebar and other and they fabricate other types of metal that go into or that process concrete. And and as we think about it, well, I don't need to show up with the plaid vest and clean shaven and heck, I bought a truck, an F-150, because it's better than driving a bright red, cherry red car showing up to a fab shop. So I think it's in everything that you do. To your point, it's the way you answer the phone. It's the tagline on your business card. It's the texture of the business card. It's every touch point that somebody's going to have with me that I need to be setting a consistent expectation with them ever before, at every point of contact that we're going to have.
Mm-hmm. And to this point, just one added throw in for veterans, it's also stuff like, did you show up on time? Were you prepared? Right. Those things, especially in an HR industry, if you're looking in a closed town or a closed area where they all talk, that is also stuff that becomes your brand, is what people say about you, whether or not you're intentionally putting it out there or not. But how are you coming across? And I promise you that they are talking to each other.
That's right.
So those are things to consider as well. So Daniel, I want to talk a little bit about your career shifts, because while they don't include the military, and that's kind of unusual for us, we typically feature veterans who have done the transition but also have done X, Y, or Z. But that's right. Your career shifts have been so drastic that I thought they were really valuable for this, because of those people who do get out of the military and they don't want to work within what their MOS was, right? They don't want to do the same thing. They either liked it or didn't there, but they're done. So talk a little bit about your background, and then a little bit about how your own personal brand helped you make those shifts.
Yeah. My business partner now is a Navy veteran, and as we prepared to come on this trip, and even last night sitting at dinner after an incredibly long day of travel, I talked to him a lot about what you and I are going to be talking about today, and he reminded me that a lot of the principles and the values that he gained in his time in the military helped him in his career path today. He talked about the ability to travel, not missing ship's movement, being on time, having a plan of the day, and being able to take a lot of those things with him into his next career. And I would say to your question, everything that I'm doing now or have done in the last 20 years has not been as drastic of a shift under the surface as much as it may look on the surface. And that's why I believe that the personal brand, you might not even see, or might not even think that you're branding, but what you realize is that the relationship that I have with my business partner today is based off of a personal brand experience that he had with me 10 years ago. And I was coming out of, I told him last night that I was going to be talking to you guys about this today, that about 11 years ago, I had been in what I would call nonprofit and ministry world. I had been doing that for 10 years. I knew, and so the parallel that I'll paint here today, and that I painted with Chuck, my 57-year-old dad figure of a uncle figure of a business partner now, is that when I made a sudden shift out of that career, that my first question was, well, what am I going to do? This is what I know how to do. I know what the next step looks like. I know what my plan of the day looks like. I know what my next career path or step up is going to look like. I know what pay to expect. I know what days we get paid. I know how to negatively impact my income. I know how to positively impact my income. I know what I should wear. I know the conferences I should go to. I know the people I should talk to. And then there was a sudden shift. And what I had to ask myself in that transition was, well, what is it that I'm laser focused good at? Well, if I took that, I'd say preaching, I'd say fundraising, I'd say networking in this world, I'd say caring for people and all this. Well, I don't want to do that anymore. I needed to be in a shift. So I had to back out to that outer circle and go, no, I'm not just good at preaching. I love telling stories. I love taking something otherwise difficult and breaking it down to its most simple form. So there's that. I love convincing people of doing things, and I did that for 10 years over here. And I remember my interview at the place where you worked too, and our boss going, "Well, can you sell?" And I said, "Well, I've been selling an invisible thing for the last 10 years, and so I guess I could sell this." And so, I had a gift of of empathy and understanding how the things that you say and the things that you do, how they make people feel. And we were in this marketing world, and we knew how the products and services that our clients had and offered impacted their customers negatively or positively. And so in the beginning, yeah, there was this sudden shift. And I want to address something that you and I talked briefly about. And it's this new sort of term that has made its way out into social media and a lot of our circles is this imposter syndrome, and this feeling of, who am I kidding? What am I doing? I'm good at that thing. Not only do I know myself as that thing, everybody else knows me as that thing, and I probably look ridiculous doing this new thing. And I think the basic definition of imposter syndrome is this feeling of inadequacy, even though you have a track record of success. And it's this
Mm-hmm.
feeling of, I don't think this is for me. I don't think I'm good at this. And what I realized is that when I jumped into this marketing agency now 11 years ago, just tried it on. And I would say that to anybody sort of making a transition is it's okay to, I'll tell a metaphor here. It's okay to go into a store and not just pick something off the rack and say, I'm buying this expensive piece of clothing. It's okay to go in the dressing room and try it on and say, I don't, your spouse or your kids or whoever might look at you and go, that looks ridiculous. And you say, it's okay. I'm not signing up to buy this yet. I'm just going to go in and try this on. And I would say from a career perspective, there is a trying on period. It's okay to say, does this thing that I'm stepping into match my personal brand? Does it match who I've told myself that I am? Is it who God is, or whatever you believe, has told me that I am? And does it match what other people believe me to be good at? And if so, then you just keep moving forward, and you try something else, and you try something else. And so then now to touch on what you would say is the other drastic career moves. I went from working at an ad agency to being the agency director of that ad agency to then starting my own marketing agency. And then what I realized is that, and our boss together at that point, I would say set me free with this statement. And he says, I am not my career. It's not who I am. No, I'm Daniel Lovelace. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a storyteller, communicator. Heck, I like writing music, and that might not be what I do for a living, but that's a hobby for me. I love doing that, but it does not make me who I am. My marketing company doesn't make me who I am. My my business partnership in this machine tool business doesn't make me who I am. Who I am behind the door is who I am. And this thing that I do for a living, the thing that I would say generates paychecks, is there's a means to joy, not joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that anybody that's sort of in this shift of like, okay, well, what do I do next? Well, yeah, you need to like what you're doing. You need to have some joy in what you're doing, but it's not there to produce joy. It's there. Um, it's there to fund the joy, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. Everything after that. So yeah.
Well, and that's, when we talk with especially veterans, so much of, especially the longer I think that the career has been, the more
Mm-hmm.
you are a title. You are
Yeah.
that recent rank. And so I think it can be hard to come out and not identify with the title and not put
Hmm.
a lot of stock in that. So how do
Hmm.
you think, how do we go against breaking that
Hmm.
stigma, not just in society, because that's probably larger than any of us right now, but at least for ourselves? How do we go
Hmm.
about really saying, you know what, yes, right now I am this. I am a
Yeah,
CEO or a COO or a director or a something, but that's
right.
not who I am. And
That's
I'm,
right.
I'm also these things. So how do you go about starting to break that down a little bit?
I think it's I think it's breaking the cultural norm that says that I have to have the same job for 40 years. And that might,
Yeah.
I think that's okay. We're in a completely different culture, and if we judge ourselves based off of our grandfathers' lives, I would say that we're looking at we're comparing ourselves to a model that doesn't exist anymore. My brother-in-law is an 18-year Army veteran that is now that's now about to go back in active duty and about to go away for another 18 months. And I would say that he's been in a consistent dressing room, like we talked about a second ago, just trying different things. And yeah, he came and worked for us on a machine tool company for about 6 months, and came in and installed machinery because the guy is incredible at logistics and incredible at putting together puzzles, and incredible at creating standard operating procedures. And that's what he did in the military. Well, in his job in the Army. And then he went away from that to start a handyman service, because the thing that he's also really gifted at is earning trust very quickly and figuring things out and fixing things. And so I think if we're constantly moving ourselves forward, not towards a position or a title, but towards opportunities that allow us to fly in the areas that bring us fulfillment, I think we're winning. And yeah, we don't need to be in positions where we're jumping from job to job to job because we think the next thing might pay us more, the next thing might give us the title we want, or the next thing might do this. But if we're in a position that we're not getting the most level of fulfillment of, that we
Mhm.
think that this other thing, man, I've capped out over here, but this thing over here is going to allow me this opportunity to serve people better in the areas where I'm gifted. I think that's completely acceptable.
Mhm. Do you see there as being a way to, go to the dressing room without losing everything to kind of the career hopper mentality? Whereas,
Hmm.
how do you prevent making that far of a shift where your resume says you can't stay anywhere too long, you're bouncing around, all that kind of stuff,
That's
but
right.
still being able to really test out what is out there? Because let's be honest, the corporate world, if you wanted a job as a juggling cowboy,
Oh, it's out
you
there.
can make it or find it. I mean, that's the
Hmm.
real world. So
I'd say the answer is very simple: is side hustle. You don't have to jump. We live in an incredible digital world right now where we have the ability to do multiple things at one time. And if there's a job that you need to be at a post, I mean, locked and loaded in for 8 hours, 9 to 5, and you have,
Mhm.
a clock in and out at noon o'clock to go take a lunch and be back at 12:59. Well, guess what? You have this tool at your fingertips called your phone or your computer that you could start at 6:01, or start when the kids go to bed, or start whenever, and just try a thing. And at the point you realize, man, this thing not only brings me more value, brings me more joy, but also pays the bills and makes the way to jump, then we do it. I think that's what I would say. You don't have to abandon the wardrobe while you're trying the other thing on. Um, I, I, I would say that's what I've done. I was really encouraged by a friend of mine a few years ago, a mutual friend of ours, and I asked him the question. I said, what are you doing these days? What do you do for a career? And he goes, that's an interesting question because I do a lot of things. And I said, well, I don't understand. He's like, well, I started this brewery, and I got a roofing company, and I got this construction company, and I got this online thing, and I got this. And that came along the same time that this other mutual friend of ours said, you're not your job. You are not your identity is not your job. And and it hit me. No, I can do a couple of different things, and I can do them at one time, even if as long as I'm doing a good job in each of these things, and one isn't robbing from the other. And then I would say at the point that one is robbing from the other, I'd have to look at it and look at my family, my responsibility there. And
Right.
also back to this thing that you said of not being known as somebody who's flippant or who wants to leave every time something new comes along.
Right.
Um, because we still have that brand to protect as well.
So we've got a little bit of time left, and I do want to open it up to questions. So if anybody does have questions, please go ahead and throw those in. But I do want to talk a little bit more about imposter syndrome. This is something that we talk about a ton at Recon, and actually posted last week, 2 weeks, about one of my favorite stories where Neil Gaiman, the author, is at a party and meets another guy named Neil. And he's like, do you ever feel, the second Neil is like, I just feel like I don't belong here. Do you ever feel like you're just kind of pretending? And
Mm.
Neil Gaiman, the writer, says, I guess if Neil Armstrong can feel like an imposter, there's room for all of us.
Hmm.
And so he's talking to the man who walked to the moon.
That's right.
I mean, so I think imposter syndrome is something that obviously all of us feel, whether or not we can identify it as such. But how do you actually work to fight it? I know how I've had to do it, and still every once in a while it pops up and I'm like, nope, we're not playing this game today. But
Hmm.
how do you deal with stuff like that?
Constantly is how.
Yeah.
uh, it's a my both of my kids in the same week. I have three kids, but my two kids that are in school both had sort of career days in the same week, and both of my kids gave two different answers as to what their dad did for a living, and there was a part of me that was like, oh yeah, I guess I do a lot of things, don't I? And then the other half was like, you flippant
What
son
are
of,
you
what
doing?
are you doing? And your kids don't even know what you do. But it gave me another opportunity to tell them that, listen, you know, my goal is to take the things that I do well and do them as often and as well as I can, at the same intensity, moving the things that I'm not good at out of my life. And I think as long as I combat that, as long as I combat being honest with myself about the things that I'm not good at.
Mhm.
Um, be honest with myself about the things that I am good at the same time, because if not, then you end up beating yourself up. And no, what are the things that you put me in a line of 10 people and I'm probably going to be, I'm probably going to be really good over here. But man, you put me in a line of 10 people in these things and I'm just not that guy. And instead of spending my time, I heard this the other day, instead of or the other maybe a couple of years ago, is instead of spending all my time focusing and trying to build the things that I'm not good at, what if I spent that time perfecting the things that I am good at and hiring the people to do the things that I'm not good at, because they're brilliant at this. There are people waiting for the opportunity to take details and follow up and management of people and all this stuff. They love this, but the things that I'm good at, of selling and recruiting and storytelling and marketing and creating, I'm alive when I do that. And I think as long as I am consistently moving these things away to empower somebody else and moving these things into an area where where I'm constantly conditioning, I am battling that imposter syndrome, because I am constantly putting myself in a place where I'm doing the thing that I think I'm pretty daggone good at. And as imposter syndrome, I think, and I was going to mention this earlier, that in that first harsh career move, I battled a lot. I battled with depression. I was sad. I battled with, what am I going to do? Who am I? And I've shared that story with people coming out of the military, and I've heard people say the same thing. It's like, I thought this transition would be easy. My brother-in-law and I have gotten abundantly closer through us even sharing that story of transition. My business partner and I have grown abundantly closer because when you realize that somebody has taken a shift and had to go find themselves in a different section of industry, or had to find themselves in a completely different position, you realize that we all have this. But I think as long as we're being honest with ourselves, hey, I'm not really good at these things, but I'll tell you, put me in a line of about 10 to 100 people, and I really, really excel in this. And as long as I'm fighting for positions or fighting for opportunities that move these things to people that are doing well. You and I do this sometimes. Hey, Jordana, I'm moving myself out of this position. I've got this opportunity here if you'd like it. I'm a backup. I've done what I've done well, which is bring the thing to the table. And I'm a backup and let you do the thing that you do really well, along with your multitude of things that you do well. Then I think that helps me push down the negative feeling that can come along with imposter syndrome, which is, is this really me? Am I really good at this? But I feel as free as ever today, walking around the world of concrete today, as I would at the last marketing conference in Chicago, because I know I'm bringing to the table. I'm not lying about who I am. Let me tell you about my story of me and my business partner. This is who he is, Navy vet. He's been in the mechanical business and machine business for the last 35 years. I was his storyteller and marketer for the last 10 years. And heck, we just thought it was a good idea to come do this thing together. People go, all right, let's talk business. So I do think it's simple form, move the things out of the way that we're not good at, focus on doing the things that we are good at. And I think it helps combat that feeling.
Well, and I think to your point too, is having that support system, having other people to either pass stuff off to or bounce ideas off of,
That's
having
right.
people in your network that you can really say, even just say, God, I feel terrible today. I feel like I shouldn't be here. And for them to be like, what are you talking about? I mean,
That's
I've
right.
had that with Recon. I've had that in all of my careers, a certain point of being like, what am I even doing here? Like, what
Yeah,
does
that's
this
right.
matter?
How did I
But
end up here? Yeah.
right. But having a support system to say, this is why you're here. And I'm going to
That's
remember
right.
all of the things that you can't right now because you're there, you're in that hole, you're in the zone. So I'm going to remember all the things for you to remind you why you're doing this and why it matters and all that kind of stuff.
I think it's really good to write those things down. I really, really do. I try to, I went to a marketing conference about 3 years ago, and this guy, Russell Brunson, um, this was in a social media personal branding session, and he talked about that on your social media to take the 5 things that you're really good at, take the 5 things that you really feel like are you, make you, and he was talking about how to get out of the day-to-day hustle of staying relevant on social media, feeling the need to post and post as a marketer, or as an influencer. I hate that word, but it's, whatever that is. And he said, just go ahead and just write the things down. What are the 5 things that bring you joy? Well, I would say this to combat imposter syndrome and the ability to make a clean transition and feel and have joy in it, fulfillment in it, is write the 5 things down, 3 things, whatever, one thing that you feel like, this is what I can bring to the table. These are the things, man. I'm gonna be the first one there. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna be the first one there. I'm gonna be highly prepared. I've heard somebody say that about you. Let me say something about Jordana. Jordana will always be 15 minutes early for a meeting, and she'll always have her notebook out ready. I heard that 8 years ago, and I've never forgotten that about you. And I would say that's personal branding too. So I know, like, I better not show up unprepared. So I'm gonna look dumb in front of Jordana. And so, what are those things? Those 5 things that you say, you know what? It's in my notes section on my phone. And I'm really good at these things, and an employer, a future opportunity, whatever. Can I just list these 5 things out for you? Maybe they're on your resume. Here's what I can bring to the table. I'm really good at these things. Here's 5 things that you probably don't want me to do. And if you're like my first employer, who put me in that job, it's like, here are the things that I don't know anything about. Okay, we're going to let you do those. And put yourself in a position to soar in those things, and finding people. And I would say that that's probably a core element of leadership, of how you move up, is then leaders are the ones who are able not only to do the things that they do well, but then find the people to do well, either that they don't have the capacity to do, or they don't have the ability as much to do. So that's what I'd say.
Well, awesome. Well, we're about
Still learning that part.
Well, it's one of those
Still learning that
lifelong
part,
learning
but I
things.
will say, just to kind of validate myself a little bit, make myself feel a little better today. I would say the last 2 years, um, I've felt a lot more joy and fulfillment in my job because I've been willing to admit those 4 or 5 things that I'm really not good. I find myself the bottleneck in. I find myself at the core of the problem of the poor or the core of the conflict with the client, and just go, you know what? No, no, no. I need to hire that out. I need to push this off. I need to find a partner. I need to find somebody else who's really good at this, and then just let me run in this. Because if you let me run in this, I can guarantee you we'll succeed. But I'll be dragged down, and our clients will be frustrated if Daniel's the project manager.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Well, cool. Well, we don't have any questions coming in the last few minutes. So is there anything else you'd advise or recommend our people?
There's a guy named Russell Brunson. I would recommend you follow on if you're on social media. He does a really good job of reminding. I've tried to limit my social media lately, and just to sort of follow as few people as possible that do bring me a little joy and speak value into my life. And he's one. We have similar values. He's running a hundreds of $1 million marketing company, and put some things out there, some validating and affirming things out online that just help me kind of put myself back in check and go, no, you're not good at this. Move this out of the way, and you are good at this, so keep moving there. So, I'd say that, and yeah, that's probably all I got right now. Make the list of the 5 things that you know that you're good at. The outer circle things. Put those down, and try to find yourself in a position where you're able to do this.
Yeah, it's good homework for anybody. So, well, Daniel, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here, even with all of the chaos in Vegas. For everyone who is still hanging in there with us, we had some speed networking booked after this. Rather than do that, since we've got some in and outs, I will go once you leave the session. You'll be in the lounge. You'll see some tables. I do this a lot with a virtual event. So you'll see tables out there. I will have a seat at one. I would love to meet you if you've got a minute. I would love to sit and network with you, Daniel, if you can. I know you're busy in the thick of everything out there, but if you can join us, I'd love to have you as well. But thank you so much for your time and effort and just, talking honest with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you guys for being here too.